a dog who was said to be too happy and lively to be a sniffer dog for the Metropolitan Police has instead become Scotland Yard's very first well-being dog. Dexter, the Black Labrador, is going to be bringing joy to officers and helping to alleviate work-related stress and trauma. Now, it is well known and proven that interacting with dogs releases the love hormone oxytocin and counteracts the stress hormone. And with everything that's been going on in 2020, it's no surprise to know that dog ownership has skyrocketed, with more people now working from home. Now, we all know that a dog is for life, not just for Christmas. So I wanted to ask you ladies, would you ever consider buying or owning a dog to boost your well-being? And if Scotland Yard can do it, should our employers also be looking to bring in dogs into workplaces or add doggy cuddles to employee well-being packages?
I love this story. I think it's so sweet. I'm so happy for that dog. I was so happy for the police officers as well. I read in an article that canine companions actually they trigger the same neural pathways as the same parent-baby bond, and that they can be used to reduce like loneliness and depression and things like that. And I think that's just like, I think it's really, really, really sweet. There was an article for a mental health website called Mind, and a guy called Paul, I think his name was, wrote about how getting a dog saved his life. And he said, you know, the love and the responsibility and things like that really helped him because he was very depressed. And whilst he was in that depressed state, like, it's very common for depressed people to feel useless and to feel unproductive. But for him, having someone who needed you made him feel useful, and having to do something every day like feed the dog every day and walk the dog every day means that he was being productive even on his off days. So I think it's a really, really beautiful thing. And in terms of Scotland Yard, I worry all the time about people like, you know, police officers who are in a line of work where they're presumably encountering like psychologically damaging things on a daily basis in a very casual manner because this is part of your job. Like, I worry about those kind of people's mental health. I worry about your well-being. And so having something like a little dog in the office, if it's going to make you feel better, like a dog that was too friendly to be a sniffer dog, like, that is fantastic. So yeah, I feel like, you know, if it's going to help someone, then go for it. I don't think it needs to be like a new workplace tradition because it's too much. Like with the Scottish Police Department, they already have to have like the dogs in their line of work. So it's like, we're going to have dogs regardless. So I think in that kind of scenario it works, but we don't need to make it a whole new thing, you know? But in your personal life, if you want to get a new dog, a new puppy at home, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with Amanda. It was definitely a lovely story. Personally, for me, I wouldn't get a dog to like boost my well-being. I'm just not that connected to animals, so it just wouldn't make any sense for me. And so that, for the same reason, is why I'd also vote against it not being in the office or not being in the well-being. I think in the line of work with police officers, okay, it makes sense and stuff like that. I don't know my day-to-day office what it would help me specifically with, but then again, other people have different stresses at work, and who knows, right? I personally am not for office pets. I have always never been for them. And like, whenever somebody has to bring in their pet to work because their pet daycare is closed down, I'm always on edge. I'm always at the desk like, oh God, where is the pet? Like, are they letting it run free? I'm always like hyper manic because I'm just thinking, where is this pet? Like, I'm losing it. And it puts me on edge and I just cannot deal. And so for me, just to respect everyone's working environment, it's kind of like, let's just not. I've literally, when I used to apply for jobs and I used to see that they had like an office pet, I would stop applying for that job. It's like, it's not even worth it. I'm not even going to get myself involved because I'm not that into animals and I'm not emotionally connected to them. So they don't do much for me. However, I have a lot of colleagues who do have a lot of animals and their animals are their life. And when their animals have passed, it has rocked their boat horrendously. And it's been actually horrific even to watch as like a friend and be like trying to comfort them through, because I never understood it in the beginning, but now as Luanda, you continue to explain it, kind of like it's like having a baby. It's like grief is the same way. So it was new for me to comfort someone in that kind of grief, and that's when I realized that animals can really be somebody's best friend. So if you really think it's going to boost your well-being, then go ahead, get an animal, but not at a workplace, is what I would say.
Guys, I want a dog so badly. I want a dog so badly. Like, just talking about this topic makes me think about the dog that I want to have. And I was never a pet person, like didn't grow up with pets. And then me and my sister were living together some years ago, and she said she wanted to get a cat. Now I was completely against it. I'm just like, we're not pet people. Like, that's not us. And then one day I just woke up and like there was a kitten on me. Like, it just literally, I was just like, what? And I just bonded with this cat so much. His name was Bam Bam. It's short for Bambi. And like, I just adored this cat. We had such a special bond. I taught him how to give kisses. Like, I honestly I loved him. I'd do anything for him. And like, when he passed away once I'd moved away from living with my sister. And honestly, I was heartbroken. Like, I woke up one night just crying because he went missing. So we just never had the closure of knowing what happened to him. And that was really, really tough. But it just made me feel like there is just something about being close to an animal. Like, just that, I don't know, it's just this warm, fuzzy feeling. And I have been literally wearing down my husband to get an animal. Like, he promised me that we could get an animal when we got married a couple of years ago, and he reneged on that promise. And then he was just like, oh, we're renting, blah, blah. But we just bought our house. So dog talk has been put back on the table. He's given me a few more stipulations, but guys, I'm knocking them down in 2021.
What type of dog do you want?
The thing where like he wakes up and he's got a puppy on his chest. Like,
do you know, my marriage might end, Luanda. I'm not going to lie, you know. If I made that, dogs aren't cheap.
He promised you.
They're
You
not.
already consented to this
dogs
situation.
Dogs could be like £3,000. So if I'm going to take £3,000 out the savings and just wake up with a dog, trust me, he is not going to be happy about it.
No.
But like, and the dog that I want is called a Cavapuchon. So it's a cross between a King Charles Cavalier, a Poodle, and a Bichon. And they're just kind of little and they're furry, and they have like these little like teddy bear faces. Like, guys, I'm just so in love already.
Small
like,
or big?
They're small. I don't want too big a dog. And they stay small. And they stay small, and they're hypoallergenic. So if you have allergies, it's fine. And they're friendly dogs. They get along with kids. Like, I've done my research. So husbands, you are making good on that promise. If you want children,
it's putting you on blast on the internet.
You better get my dog. That's
Jonathan, make sure you are listening to Sophie loud and clear. She's talking in bold and underlined and exclamation marks. Okay, this is for you, Jonathan.
Yeah.
I've never really connected with animals. However, I have had several pets in my lifetime, and I think this has also contributed to me not really being an animal person. I had a multitude of fish. I had a hamster, I had a cat, I had a parrot, and then I briefly had a dog. So I've had pets throughout my life, but I've just never been connected to them. So they've just never really been my bag. So now as an adult, I know that I'm definitely not going to have them because it's just not for me. However, my best friend, she has this cat. She's so cute. The cat's called Fendi. Fendi is so cute. I cannot deal. So I get my best friend to send me pictures and videos of Fendi like all the time. So I can look at her and be like, oh, Fendi's so cute. But then when I'm at her house, I cannot be around Fendi because Fendi is just too wild for me. I cannot take it. So I make her put Fendi in another room because I cannot deal. So I like pictures. When I see pictures of cats, it makes me smile. So I understand that warm feeling, but not enough to like want to be around them.
Yeah. I mean, I have a interesting relationship with animals because like I respect them enough not to eat them. However, I don't
That's very true. That's
very true.
And maybe me getting a dog might actually make me start to rethink my, cannibalism.
People never make that connection, like the speciesism. Like the first thing that I was talking about, from my veganism, my vegetarianism is like the difference between people. What do you guys remember Harambe? That
monkey?
I feel like she was an ape, like a big. Yeah, I feel like
gorilla?
She was an ape. Gorilla. Yeah. Do you remember her?
Mm-mm. The one that got shot about the child in the cage?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Harambe got shot, and then everyone on the internet was like up in arms. How could they shoot this massive, majestic animal and blah, blah. It was to save a child, so you know what I mean. But they were like, how could they shoot Harambe and blah, blah, blah. Harambe was trending for 2 weeks. And I was like, all of these people who are crying over Harambe are crying over their cheeseburgers whilst they're, you know what I mean, they're eating their cheeseburgers and crying over Harambe. And I'm just like, you don't make the connection that like all animals can feel the same things that your favorite dog that you've, I don't know what people name their dogs, Fluffy. You're in love with Fluffy and you want to cry when Fluffy gets lost or when Fluffy doesn't eat, but you're gonna then sit at the table and do you know what I mean? So it's just like, yeah.
So would you get a pet, Luanda?
I don't even know if I should say, but I have a controversial opinion on pets as well, man. I have a popular opinion on pets. Because the thing is, like, I just believe that animals should have their freedom, and just the idea that you, like, 'cause say, for example, that, like, a dog has a litter of puppies. You would then, you know, you're waiting a couple of weeks for the dog to bond with its mom so they can get the milk from its mother. And then you're then taking this puppy away from its mom for your own personal pleasure. And then you're going to, like, I don't know what they do. They, like, burn the balls so they can't have children. Like, everything's to do with, like, your convenience and what you want instead of, like, the actual animals. So, like, I guess I appreciate people who rescue pets, but the whole idea of domesticated animals, again, it's just another thing that, like, they've been breeded against their will for our personal pleasure and our personal, like, Christmas cards to have, like, a nice fluffy friend next to us. So I'm just like, I don't know.
I'm going to come on to that, but I just want to say I was a cannibal earlier, and I'm not a cannibal. Cannibals eat people. I meant carnivore. I eat meat. I just want to make that very,
none of us
very
even
clear.
caught that. I didn't even catch that. I'm probably like, yeah, girl, you a cannibal.
No, because I was just like, I know someone's going to pick up and like, she's a what? But
oh my gosh.
I think that Luanda makes a very good point, and I would probably say that if you are thinking of getting a pet, make sure that you're going to reputable, registered, licensed people who are breeding, because they will have specific rules around the things that you're talking about, Luanda. So they'll make sure that when they put dogs together, they're not force breeding them. They're making sure that these dogs, the female dogs, aren't breeding consistently throughout the year, just as they would in their natural cycle, and making sure that they have time to bond and they're well adjusted. So if you don't want to own a pet, don't, but make sure if you do, that you're making sure that the animals have been treated as fairly as possible.
But is there a fairly treated in slavery?
Yeah, so
we treat our slaves
slavery feels strong, Luanda.
I think for domesticated pets, I think it is slightly different to like animals in the wild, so that people who breed tigers in spaces that are like no bigger than like a house full pan, because domesticated animals, like, they're gonna breed anyway. If we decided to leave them to just run wild and to be free, the world would be unkept with dogs, cats, this, that, and others. So there does need to, in my opinion, be some sort of intervention to make sure that that's not happening, and making sure that you're not stressing out the dogs as well by letting them breed consistently, because on breeding farms, that's what people do, or they make sure that the dogs are confined more than they should be. So that's why I'm saying, if you're gonna do it, there are better and safer ways to make sure that the pets are treated fairly.
I hear what you're saying. It's just like better still isn't their own life.
But
it's
what
still
would,
like,
no,
but we don't know if the dogs want to be in the streets.
Like, what would happen to the dogs if we just said we're going to let them run free and live their life freely? That's what I'm saying.
But why are we looking at two extremist ideas? Because I think whenever, like, someone kind of brings up this topic, like, if someone says, oh, I'm vegan, but like, but what if you were on a desert island and you only had to kill a chicken to eat? And we're like, why are we talking about this? Is that relevant?
No, but I'm saying, so what's... Okay, so
I think there's two types of animals though. Ones that like naturally live in the wild that we take out of their habitat and cage up and put them in zoos and do all the cis boom bar stuff too. And then I think there's the other kind of animals who are either domesticated or to roam free. I don't know, like, if the cats and dogs came from the wild.
They did, and we made those. We probably, like, do you know what I mean? Like, their descendants, their cousins and stuff are like the feline, like,
that's
cats.
true, but I'm like, what's the middle ground? So you're saying the middle ground isn't to have like fair, but
I'm saying the middle ground, okay, you can rescue pets. Rescue pets if you want to take care of pets. Like, I'm not saying that people who have pets aren't taking care of them. Obviously, there are people who abuse animals, and that's just like a whole different scenario. But I mean, like, that we have literally breeded these animals to be domesticated for us, because domesticated animals don't actually exist. This is something that us humans have created. There aren't two types of animals. There's only two types because we've made two types.
Okay, Luanda, yes. But it's like when we talked about porn on last week's episode and this idea of we're never going to get porn back in the box. Like, as much as we might say in the West, like it might not be healthy or this or that, we've let it out. It's out. It's now about how do we regulate. So I'm saying, is there a plan that you have to say, what do we do now that we've let breeding out? We've let out domesticated pets, agreed. Like cats come down from tigers, come down from lions, I'm sure. But how do we now regulate this in a fair way? Because domesticated pets aren't going anywhere.
Well, I mean, that's our choice for them to not go anywhere. Like, if they're here, we're keeping them here. If you're saying they're not going anywhere, it's because we're not letting them. And when you're talking about...
I personally prefer them in the home than in the streets. I'm not going to lie.
We're talking about like dogs that are like, oh, it's a mixture of this, this, and that. It's because these animals have been put together to like forcibly breed so that we can have this pretty little puppy in our bloody Chanel bags and walk down the street. Like, do you know what I mean?
But do you know what? I don't know if you've ever been to Nepal. I've been to Nepal and dogs roam free there. Like literally, like dogs are everywhere. And it doesn't make the dogs any happier or whatever because there is no one to look after them. They get into dog fights. Like they're literally preyed upon because there are no regulations and they're let to roam free. So I'm just saying, I don't think we have the time now, but I would want to know like what would be a constructive plan to make sure that they're able to have freedom, because for someone who's going to love and care for this animal and give them the best life that they have, are we saying that we should be doing the opposite and just letting them roam free on the streets? Because I'm not sure if that would make people any happier.
Please, no more on the streets.
That's what I mean by like, why are we talking about extremes again? It's like, why in your mind is the only two options us taking these animals in versus us having cats, dogs, wild everywhere?
It's not. But I'm asking you.
Sophie's asking, what's the medium? Sophie's asking, what's the medium?
Yeah. So then I'm saying to you guys, if there are animals that need to be taken care of, need to be rescued, then rescue them. Cool. I think even people, like a lot of my vegan friends who want pets, and I'm not opposed to pets 100%. It's just the idea of taking these animals away from their parents and having them for your own personal pleasure, and then like burning their genitalia so that they can't breed anymore because it's not convenient to you to have another litter of cats. Like this kind of thing is kind of like, I think it's so normalized that we don't see how cruel it is, to be honest.
It's tough. I mean, I don't want anything else in the streets. The squirrels and the pigeons are enough. So, honestly.